Alright, we have another live event coming up. The incoming damage, webs, and newts make the combat sites relatively dangerous when compared to other events. However, even newbros should be able to run it safely with the right fit. Moreover, a lack of warp disrupt in E-War means that you can bug out if things do go south. Finally, there's also mining sites which contain a new type of ore used in the manufacture of cerebral accelerators. If the silos are left alone, only normal belt rats will spawn. Thus, even day one newbros should be able to participate. First, let's go over the event details, and then I'll cover recommended fits. As stated before, there are combat and mining sites. Loot drops include cerebral accelerator BPCs, dark blood faction loot, agency drugs, and the old cold iron skins that were first introduced a couple years back. And do note that the faction loot had a ridiculous drop rate on the test server, but that's likely to be toned down considerably before hitting Tranquility. Anyway, mining sites contain chthonic adder ore, which is used in the production of cerebral accelerators. Agency points can be earned through combat sites and mining. Rewards are one built cerebral accelerator and the new Deathglow hunter skins, which look pretty good. As for the combat sites, a T1 cruiser can handle the first portion of it, but the optional final wave puts out quite a bit of DPS. Thus, if you're going to run the whole site, you're probably going to need more tank. Options include a Vexor Navy issue with an oversized prop mod, adequately tanked T1 battlecruisers, and a properly tanked Gnosis. Most of the rats do EM and thermal in equal amounts, but the final battleship does do considerably more EM than thermal damage, thus you probably don't want to leave an EM resist hole. The best damages to deal are probably EM and thermal, however I wasn't able to find any specific stats on them, thus that's an educated guess. Once again, the rats do use newts and webs. Fortunately, no warp disruption E-War was observed. Naturally, a cap battery or a reactor core subsystem is highly recommended for providing defense against the newts. There are also multiple waves with various triggers, which I'll cover in more detail, but the short answer is that you'll mostly face frigates and cruisers, with a few other subcaps thrown in for good measure. And here are the spawns. Expect the frigates to web and the cruisers to newt. Clearing out previous waves will instantly spawn waves 2, 3, and 5. However, waves 2 and 3 will spawn if you take too long to finish off the previous wave. Naturally, you'll want to avoid faffing about lest you get overwhelmed. The battlecruiser spawn is triggered by destroying one of the 3 cookhouse shielding projectors. If you don't see them on your overview, make sure that large collidable structures are set to show under Entity in your overview settings. Once again, the first 4 waves aren't too bad, but the 5th wave can put out quite a bit of DPS, so be prepared to warp out if needed. The Splendorcock seems to have a guaranteed chance of dropping a cerebral accelerator BPC. As such, I consider him the main loot drop. That being said, all the ships were observed to be dropping goodies, thus I highly recommend clearing out the entire site if you can. Finally, the beacon for the site will disappear a little bit after the Splendorcock is destroyed. Thus, if you need to warp out and come back again, then you need to bookmark the site. Alright, so the mining sites can be suitable for day one ventures, but things can also get pretty nasty. It appears that only normal belt rats spawn as long as you don't destroy the Deathglow harvest silos. However, you'll trigger a battleship wave every time you destroy a silo. Moreover, sometime after destroying all 3, a double-sized battleship wave will warp in. Needless to say, you'll probably want to clear that nasty little surprise with the combat ship first, bookmark the site because the beacon will disappear, and then return in your mining barges and whatnot to chew on the rocks. If you can't handle the rats, leave the silos alone and you should be fine. I only mine for about 20 minutes however, so do take that with a grain of salt. Plus, everything on the test server is subject to change. Anyway, I don't know how long the site will persist after you've destroyed the silos, but it shouldn't despawn as long as someone's in it. If solo mining, be sure to bookmark the pocket and not the gate, that way you can easily grab your jet cans, MTU, and whatnot if the site does despawn on you. Anyway, the chthonic adder ore is what you'll be chewing on. If you don't see it, set Dead Space Asteroid to show in your overview settings. And your reprocessing yield is affected by reprocessing and reprocessing efficiency skills, but it doesn't look like you'll get any structure bonuses, so hopefully that changes before the event goes live on Tranquility. Alright, let's talk fits. I think that the cheapest, lowest skilled ship that's going to be able to handle battleship waves is going to be the Gnosis. For those unfamiliar with it, it's a special edition battlecruiser with low skill requirements, and its bonuses and stats allow for many different fits to be viable. Basically, you can fit according to the skills you already have. Anyway, they're currently going for about 29 mil in JITA, which I know may be kind of pricey for new bros, but that's also one of the lowest price points they've ever been at as well. Moreover, you should be able to make that back rather quickly. Alright, let's start with the armor tank. So use this to help you get started. From here, add the medium weapon system that you have the best skills for, as well as a corresponding damage mod in the empty low slot. The mid slots can be filled with tracking computers, missile guidance computers, webs, target painters, and or additional cap mods if needed. However, I do recommend pairing a short-range weapon system with dual webs if you can. Shorter-range systems such as pulse lasers and heavy assault missile launchers will do more damage and have an easier time hitting the frigates that like to swarm you. And the dual webs will help with damage application for both your guns and your drones. Moreover, they'll help with your friend's damage application if you decide to buddy up. After all of that, you'll have one high slot left with either a turret or missile hardpoint. If you're running solo, you'll probably just want to add in a final gun or a missile launcher in order to squeeze out a little more DPS out of the ship. However, if you buddy up, you can use this slot to spider tank. Basically, you drop the armor rep from the low slot and add a remote armor rep to your high slot. This frees up the low slot for an additional damage mod. Anyway, if you have selectable damage, pick ammos that do EM and or thermal damage. As for drones, Alkalite should have a slightly easier time dealing with frigs and destroyers and hobgoblins, but both should work well enough. Both infiltrators and hammerheads will work against the cruisers and above, but the hammerheads will give you a little extra punch. If you still need more tank, you could upgrade to T2 rigs, but they're rather expensive. Thus, your best bet will probably just be to double up on EM and thermal hardeners. A pair of active hardeners could also work for some people, but depending on skills, the resist differences might not be large enough. And if you're exceptionally low skill, roll with the dual rep setup. It will really hurt your damage and damage application, but it should give you enough tank to be able to participate in the event. Also, missiles and projectile turret weapon systems don't use cap, so they'll help in that regard. Anyway, stagger your reps, and if things start to go south, overheat your reps, turn off your prop mod, align, and start spamming the warp button. And don't worry about your T1 drones, they're much cheaper than your ship. Oh, and do note that the fit with the passive hardeners can handle the combat sites, but I seriously doubt that it'll be able to handle the double-sized battleship wave that spawns in the mining sites. For the curious, I know that 86% resist and a 433 EHP per second local rep can handle the double-sized wave, but I didn't test for the minimum viable tank. Alright, I feel like I'm spending too much time on this, so I want to pick up the pace a bit. While a buffer shield tank can barely get the job done, it probably won't cut the mustard for lower skilled pilots. Of course, a passive tank could certainly work, but since we have to fit a cap battery for newt defense anyway, we might as well go active. Once again, use this as a jumping off point. Next, add your preferred weapon system to the highs and the appropriate damage and damage application mods to the lows. Depending on skills and the weapon system that you select, you may need more or less cap. If you need more, add another capacitor relay. If you need less, drop the one that's already there. Just don't remove the cap battery. If you really need the fitting room, try downgrading from a large compact battery to a medium T2. Finally, spider tanking with a buddy will essentially allow you to move your shield rep from the mid slot to a high slot. If you're really low skill, fill it with an adaptive invulnerability field. If you're capable of fitting a T2 tank, you should already have enough tank. In that case, fill the vacated mid with a web or target painter in order to help both of your guys' damage application. And real quick, here's an example of a full fit. Note that I undergunned my last high slot. I could have fit a ham, but because I didn't have any damage application mods affecting it, it would have applied poorly against the smaller ships. Thus, I decided to roll with a rapid light missile launcher in order to help me kill those pesky webbing frigates. Also, if you want to fly a regular T1 cruiser, try to transpose the shield or armor base fit onto it and then go from there. For example, Here's an active shield tank Drake fit. Next up, we have the workhorse of nullsec. It is relatively expensive at 90 million is, so high-sec bros are probably better off getting a Gnosis. However, if you already have a rat in VNI, you can swap out the appropriate resist mods and run the event. For those that are unfamiliar with the ship, the oversized afterburner ruins the tracking of the larger rats and allows you to outrun the frigates. To use, orbit a structure at 40k and use the alkalites against the frigs and destroyers and the ogres against everything else. Don't drop a tanking mod if you're hurting for cap. Instead, swap a low slot mod for a cap power relay. Also, the auto-targeter is kind of annoying because it has a tendency to lock larger ships while you're trying to kill frigates, but I have verified that it does help keep aggro on your ship and off of your drones in these sites. Finally, the cruisers will still try to nuke you out to at least 45k, but they won't be draining any cap at that range. In short, stay moving, don't get webbed, and you'll be fine. If you want to know more info on how to fly this ship safely, just do a YouTube search for the Ratting Vexor Navy issue. Alright, a handful of properly tanked skiffs with shield links and/or remote rep support should be able to handle the double-sized battleship wave in the mining site, but short of that, you're best off either clearing the site with a combat ship or just leaving the Deathglow harvest silos alone. So just roll with your normal tanking strategy and be prepared to bug out if someone starts popping silos. Anyway, here's a fit designed to protect against high-sec gankers. And do note that the strip miner ones are preferred over the T2, as I don't think any of the crystals will give a bonus yield for the Thonic Adar. And the final rig slot is left to your discretion. Personally, my old barges have ice harvesting rigs because I used to frequently ice mine. I also don't bother with survey scanners because I normally don't bother with short cycling, and finding out how much was left in the rock is usually as easy as asking on comms. And finally, here's a venture fit for the newest of newbros. You will be quite squishy, but you also shouldn't be worth bothering with. Just orbit a rock with your afterburner on while mining. If regular belt rats spawn, wait for someone else to kill them, or use your own drones if you can. If someone you don't know gets close to you, or someone starts popping silos, just leave. And definitely don't fit a survey scanner. If you're short cycling in a venture, you are wasting your life. Alright, that should be it. I'll be checking comments at least once a day, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Also, regular viewers may have noticed that I switched to a new font. It's called Open Dyslexic, and it's designed to be easier for dyslexic people to read. It is a little playful for my taste, but hopefully it helps at least a couple viewers out. Alright, that's it. Don't forget to support all your favorite content creators, and until next time, fly smart.